All right, just so you know.
This is under review. Usually it's just me talking about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports headlines. But I figured since the NFL season is basically here with training camp, I figured I'd bring in Jennifer Matthews Lewis to talk about the Carolina Panthers.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Probably not as good as your Carolina Panthers because you said you just had an injury during training camp, which, it's training camp. That's always going to happen, unfortunately.
It is. And it stinks because the injury that just occurred was J.C. Horn. And as everyone knows, he was our number one draft pick in 2021. He played 2 or 3 games last season, and then he had a bad foot injury. And now he just got injured again in about 4 hours ago. Or the tweet came out about 4 hours ago. And Rashawn Melvin, one of our other corners, retired. However, good news is we did just sign cornerback Duke Dawson. And Duke is he was part of the workout after practice. And so they're saying some pretty positive things. He's a former second-round pick of the Patriots and spent the last 3 seasons with who, Jordan?
I thought so. I thought that name sounded familiar with the Denver Broncos. I don't remember him doing a whole lot, but he was on the roster.
Yeah, so you think he'll be good?
He's a young player, so, he hasn't had much playing time. I think that's what he needs, and that's why Denver got rid of him, because of our depth. I do like Duke. I know I saw a bunch of plays from him in the preseason last year. Definitely a guy that can be a backup corner. Whether or not he can start, that's made to be seen because he hasn't had that opportunity. Maybe he'll have that opportunity now.
Right. Sorry, I just read a funny line on something I had pulled up for our talk that made me smile and laugh vengefully.
So the biggest story going into training camp was Baker Mayfield, I should say, not was. Is. He was traded July 6th. I know we talked about this.
I did not think it was going to happen because after their initial meeting, they came out and said both parties mutually disinterested.
I honestly thought he would go to Seattle. My only reasoning is because you had, Drew Lock there. They didn't really have a starting quarterback. I saw Drew Lock play here in Denver. Didn't really get an opportunity, or didn't make most of his opportunity, I should say. And we sent him packing. Obviously, we got Russell Wilson. But I was really surprised that you guys got Baker Mayfield, only because you had Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback. Also, you drafted Matt Corral. The thing is, though, to me, it seems like, I don't know if this is a big upgrade. Yes, Baker Mayfield has been to the playoffs, but it just feels like you almost have the same quarterback going. And I know I've watched some of the competition going on. I know that you guys opened camp the 27th, like the Denver Broncos. I know Baker Mayfield started, got the first team reps the first day. I believe Sam Darnold got them second. I think Matt Rule rotate. Which, honestly, I've been through that with the Denver Broncos with quarterback competition, and it's not exactly the funnest thing. I'd like to have a quarterback that's already seasoned, ready to go. And I honestly think if you're going to do that, you go with Sam Darnold because he knows the system, only because he's played in 1 year. But, of course, you have a new offensive coordinator there.
Right. And a lot of people hate McAdoo, but I ain't hating it. Because if you listen to what his actual players said, at least publicly, nobody knows behind the scenes. But they were all really upset when the Giants fired him as HC. They didn't feel like the front office gave him enough time because he came up from being their OC to their head coach, and they were really dissatisfied. The players were not happy because they really wanted to give him a shot, and he had built that loyalty. I ain't hating it. I ain't hating that I have Wilkins back. I think we bought him back because we need our culture back, because Matt Rule and David Tepper have decimated our culture, and Matt Rule's best known for building the culture.
Which we'll get to Matt Rule here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think is?
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh.
Baker did impress me with his press conference yesterday because he gave out Charlotte FC as a shout out. So that was it worked in so smooth. Like, I started laughing as soon as I heard it, but it took the reporters in the audience like a second. But it was like the smoothest like shout out ever.
So who do you think starts week 1? I know, we're only 2 days into training camp, almost 3. And yet your first game, I believe, is September 11th. Who do you think is going to start right now? I know I'm asking a loaded question since we haven't seen him play.
2 starters minimum.
2 starters.
Hey. Because he wants another quarterback still. He wants a 5th quarterback, Jordan. He wants one for the red zone.
This is why I'm glad I'm a Broncos fan. And I've been through this training camp battle, 3 years in a row? I mean, last year it was Teddy Bridgewater versus Drew Lock. And now this year it's just Russell Wilson. Things can definitely change. But I think if you want to win, Baker Mayfield has shown in the past he can win. But in the end, it's really hard to decide who should start right now, just because I haven't seen him play a single game. If I had to pick, I'd go with Darnold, only because he knows the system. I know you guys have a new offensive coordinator in McAdoo, but in the end, I think Baker Mayfield is probably going to edge out Sam Darnold just because has the better record.
I don't know who's going to start home opener. Dollars to donuts, it's going to be Baker because he's at least we're playing the Browns.
That's the other interesting part about the trade that I thought about, is that you guys are playing the Browns the first game of the year. So the question is that at home or is that in Cleveland?
Home. And it's funny because my dad is a PSL holder since 96, right? I share the cost of the tickets with him every year. So I looked at him. The Wednesday night was my mom's birthday, so we all went out to a big family dinner. I looked at my dad and I go, so you excited about the home opener? And we were talking about another topic regarding the games. And he goes, yeah. And my mom looked at me. She goes, I'm going to the home opener. And I looked at my dad and I go, where are you going to watch?
There you go.
I should have had my dad on with us today. You would love talking to him. Like, Jordan, my father is a walking football encyclopedia.
I'm sure he is. You've talked about him with other sports, but definitely, I mean, football is definitely something I definitely enjoy too.
I'm pretty sure this is he had me catching a football when I was still in a crib.
Even if it isn't the Denver Broncos, I always like learning and listening to other people's opinions about what's going on in the game. I mean,
he knows about the Broncos.
It's just it's nice to have those connections.
Yeah.
So staying with training camp, what other training camp battles are you looking at? For you guys, I'm looking at a third wide receiver. You have DJ Moore. You also have Robbie Anderson. But the question is, who? You Anderson?
That guy that doesn't show up. We overpaid that guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But
Tommy Tremble. I'll take Tommy Tremble any day of the week.
But the thing is, it's for me, if I look at it, it's between Terrence Marshall Jr., Rashard Higgins, who I played in Cleveland, Brandon, I can't even say his name, Celestria, I want to say, and then Shi Smith, although Shi Smith is an undrafted free agent. I know he's in some legal trouble.
Oh, he's here. Oh, yeah, he is in legal trouble. He actually, so Joe Pearson tweeted out a couple hours ago that Shi the quote was almost a heck of a catch by Shi Smith and a tipped ball in the end zone. Officials ruled it incomplete, but that was a couple hours ago. So he's signed with us again. He should be, but he is.
I mean, you do. DJ Moore is a great number one wideout.
DJ.
Of course, he is your number one wide receiver. The thing is, though, is if Robbie Anderson doesn't step up, you're going to have one of those guys who really does need to step up, and I honestly going to go with.
Can we just cut him?
You probably should. Right now he's a waste of a roster space. He hasn't done a whole lot for you guys.
He doesn't want to be here. He
really,
retired this summer on Twitter. He retired, recanted. He advocated loudly against Baker on Twitter, and then he's got to get pissy when he doesn't get the ball. I mean, he thinks he's like LBJ, you know.
And those type of receivers, honestly, they're just bad. Like you said, you want to create a culture in Carolina. That doesn't help create a culture. We saw that many years ago with Brandon Marshall. Of course, we had not a very good coach at the time, Josh McDaniels, who basically got rid of a lot of our players. But you could tell Brandon Marshall was not wanting to be there. He kicked a football. We finally said, hey, we're going to let you go. So the question is how long are you going to keep Robbie Anderson if he doesn't want to be there?
And how much more does Robbie have to prove that he doesn't want to be there?
Right. I mean, if you just look at his numbers, they weren't terrible. 53 passes caught, 519 receiving yards. But you want to see that number at 900 yards, not just 519, and only 5 touchdowns. I mean, 5 touchdowns is pretty good if you're playing fantasy football. Not good if you're playing wide receiver in the NFL.
Right, exactly. My issue with Robbie actually started last offseason, okay? He decided to skip optional training days. He decided to skip minicamp. He decided to skip FanFest. During FanFest, I happened to jump online on TMZ, and they had just published, and I rarely go on there, okay? Like, truly, true story. They had just published an article saying that they, like, with updated photographs of Robbie in New York at some jewelry store. This past offseason, he also tweeted that he wanted to go back to the Jets. Please do. Please do, sir.
You're better off cutting him if that's what he's doing on optional. They are optional, but if that's what you're doing,
are they really optional though? Technically, yes, they're optional. But if you actually want to play,
yeah, in reality, they're not, because they want to see guys that are in the building. It shows you how interested you are. I know. With the Broncos, I know I'm a huge Broncos fan, and you guys know that. But
you are.
I know, right? This is just breaking news. But I do know that even on those optional days, our stars were there. It was, Russell Wilson. Of course, he was trying to get acclimated to the culture. You had Jerry Jeudy out there. I mean, Cortland Sutton. You even had defenders. And these guys, and I've heard interviews with them and say, yeah, this guy wants to do everything right to understand the culture. When you see a guy like Robbie Anderson not coming to these optional workouts, it does leave a bad taste in your mouth, because how invested is he in the franchise? Right now, it doesn't seem like he is.
Right. And then, I don't know, Robbie's just not into us. I mean, they wrote a book about it. He's just not that into you. Mr. Roll, please read the book, because he's not that into you anymore.
And that segues into our next topic, your favorite topic. I say that as being funny. Is Matt Rhule. His hot seat to me is just getting hotter. It's been probably hot since he's been hired. And of course, you guys have a new ownership. That kind of helped a little bit. But if I look at it, his record, and I know you already know this, 10-23. And as an NFL coach, a winning percentage of .303. Most coaches would be gone after 2 years. That's what the Broncos did. Got rid of Vance Joseph and Vic Fangio after a few years. How much longer are you guys going to go with Matt Rhule? Because again, he doesn't have the pro football experience, because he came out of college, and a lot of times college head coaches fail going into the NFL.
Right. Now, you have a couple of exceptions, like Pete Carroll. However, how many times did Pete Carroll fail in the NFL before he got it going right?
he was with the Jets and he was fired from that. I want to say it was with the Browns, but I'm don't know if I'm mixing up with him with Bill Belichick, because Bill was also part of the Browns. But you're right, he had a couple opportunities, then went to college, got right at USC, and then Matt Rule needs to be fired. I can't argue with that. But
hey, Mercy.
There's not many coaches that actually succeed going from college to the NFL. Pete Carroll actually had to take a step back. I'm wondering for Matt Rule if that's what he needs to do. To the NFL, Pete.
Yeah, I think Matt Rule became way too high on the hog. He had like what, 1 or 2 winning seasons in college, not many.
Actually, only 3 times where he won 10 plus games.
But okay, and he went to 1 bowl game.
It says my notes say 4 bowl game appearances, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it wasn't like he went to, the Fiesta Bowl or the Sugar Bowl. These were just, not very big bowls. So I don't know how much stock you put into that.
I mean, a bowl is a bowl. A bowl is a bowl. Good for him, good for the players. He obviously was a good college coach to some guys, because a couple of the guys really wanted to play for him again. At one point, Robbie Anderson wanted to play for him again. I don't know that Robbie wants to play for him again. I forgot who else, but I know when he first came in, I'm looking at all the coaches he's bringing in, all the players he's bringing in, and it was literally every single one. It was like he'd had some connection with in college coach. So I was like, okay, so maybe he can bring some plays to the NFL that he can bring some plays to the NFL that we hadn't seen, but he has. However, they haven't really gone the way I wanted them to go.
That's understandable with the 10-23 record. The thing that I do think he's been on the hot seat. He was on the hot seat last year. He's on the hot seat this year.
The press said he was last year. I don't know that he was, because Ron Rivera was fired midseason.
And I don't think you guys should have fired Ron Rivera.
He's got the most integrity of any football coach in the NFL.
Now he's with Washington with the Commanders.
I just hope the NFL gives Ron the Commanders. Yes, that won't happen.
The thing I look at it is he's on the hot seat. This is his 3rd year, and this is basically a make it or break it season. If Matt Rule, has a losing season. I mean, in the NFL, it's kind of interesting now that we have 17 games. A losing season is 8-9. Really, that's 500. If you lose 6, or excuse me, if you only win 6 or 5 games, then I think you have to make a decision to let him go, because it's a hard decision. But for you guys to becoming a winning team, I'm just not sure Matt Rule is the right guy. But the problem also is his contract. I don't understand why you guys gave him a 7-year contract. It's just absurd.
Because David Tepper has more money than sense. He forgot his common sense somewhere along the way. Probably bulldozed it down when he bulldozed his old boss's house down.
I mean, could be.
Like, my thing is, Tepper is a wealthy man. $25 million to him is $25 to us.
That's true.
I mean, the dude has what, $19-20 billion B with the B.
Yeah.
So sunk cost fallacy. That's all I've got to say there. My girlfriend, as you see, I tagged her in this. My friend Sydney has a theory, and I actually 100% back her up, because I could not find anything wrong in her logic. Rule has to win the first 5 games of the season, or he's gone. Because Tepper keeps saying Rule's won the first 3 games. He's won the first 3 games. So Tepper's now like, time to pony up. Time to pony up, boy.
That does make sense, especially if you go 0-5 and 1-4. The thing is, though, with 17 games, I wouldn't hit the panic button there. But yeah, I do think there might be a change, especially if you're 0-5, 1-4 going into week 6.
Right. And my thing is, because we do have 17 games, get them the hell away from my team.
I completely agree with
two
you.
former head coaches who actually have NFL coaching experience as coaches. I'm in love with Phil Snow. Like, if you ever want to see some like well-placed shade, like he can give my mom a run for her money with how well he does his shade. Watch Phil Snow's press conference from last year when we re-signed Cam. Like, after that press conference, I started watching every single one of Phil Snow's, because Phil will throw Matt Rule under the bus, and it's not look back, and it's done in a very diplomatic way where he can't get in trouble.
Fair enough. At least your coaches and your franchise isn't talking about how great a practice you had, especially going into the week, because that's all I heard with Vance Joseph for two whole years. And then fake Fangio started doing that. I'm like, why? At least Nathaniel Hackett isn't doing that. But of course, we haven't played a game with him as head coach. So I do think that Matt Rule, his seat is only going to get hotter. And I just wonder if there are any, I'm sure there is, what the odds are that he's going to be the first head coach fired in the NFL.
Well, Vegas odds have him. But I just read that. That's why I had chuckled earlier on accident. I saw that. Hold on. Maybe it's in the other article. I don't remember the odds are, but Vegas has Matt as being the first one to get fired. First head coach of the season to be fired.
Kind of makes sense because of what's going on there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because here's the thing. He still wants to do a QB1 and a QBA, like QBA, QBB situation. He still wants a fifth quarterback. We technically have cap space that we do have to use, but I want to save that cap space for when Baker gets hurt, Sam gets hurt, Matt Corral doesn't know enough, and we bring Cam back.
Honestly, if you're looking at that, I honestly think Cam Newton is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
And
sorry, it's really hot.
Oh, you're
good. But that's what they have. But like what game was it? Was it the Eagles game last year? It may have been the Eagles game last year when one of the no, it was the Patriots game. And one of the guys was sitting, a Patriots fan was sitting next to my dad. And he goes, you know what? It's not looking too bad, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, halfway through, he goes, who's your quarterback now? And my dad was like, we've got so-and-so in. He goes, yeah, your coach just doesn't know what he's doing, does he? Because that's what he did. I know, D. I know. That's why we got Baker. Matt's intimidated by Cam. We all know it.
So now we're going to go to a little bit more of a preview for you guys. Yeah. You look at the offensive outlook for the Panthers. For me, though, it comes down to, and you know how much I like Christian McCaffrey. I know he's been hurt, but I think if you're able to run the ball with Christian McCaffrey, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That's going to open up the pass. Plus, you got to score more than 17.9 points per game, which was 29th in the league.
Yes, but we only have 3 plays.
That sounds like the Broncos. That sounds like the Broncos offense from last year. Run to the left, run to the right, or throw the football.
When Matt gets gone, you're going to see a complete turnaround. I'm not going to be surprised when Christian does not get put on IR. I firmly believe, and anybody can tell me all day long, I don't think Matt likes Christian.
That is probably true because he is not the coach who drafted him.
And Cam asked Ron for Christian.
You know, what's interesting through that draft, as you know, Broncos country here, we were really hoping that Christian McCaffrey, we would actually trade up to go grab Christian McCaffrey. There are even rumors that we were interested in doing that, but then it comes out that we weren't interested. And we love Christian here in Denver. If you guys don't know about the Broncos franchise, his dad played, Ed McCaffrey played for the Denver Broncos. He also grew up in Denver, so we were just hoping it'd be a homecoming. In the end,
he saved a man's life like 3 years ago right outside Denver.
That is correct. So he's one of those guys that loves Denver. He even said, yes, I want to play for Denver. The only problem is I don't know how interested the Broncos franchise really was, because at the time our general manager was John Elway, and I don't know what his relationship was with Ed McCaffrey, if that, made a difference, but it's just, we decided not to go out and get him. And unfortunately, well, I am a Christian McCaffrey.
Jordan and I've gotten into it a couple times because he keeps trying to steal my CMC.
But my whole thing is how would that have worked in Denver had he been drafted to the Broncos? I don't know, just because I don't know the relationship between Elway and McCaffrey, his dad, once he left. I know he grew up in Denver. Would he have succeeded? And I'm not sure he would have succeeded. And that's only because of the coaches we've had in Denver.
Huh. Tell me more, Price Ash.
Let
me Google that real quick. So I don't know if you knew this or not, but Ed actually wanted Christian here in Carolina.
Huh. I didn't know that.
You know what? Price, you're a goober. Okay, I'm taking you down now, mister. And I know you're laughing right now. Just so you know, Greg is a basketball player.
I figured with the Greg Oster tag, I was like,
yeah,
that's basketball. That takes me back a ways.
Teddy's in Miami now.
Yeah, he signed with Miami to back up Tua. That's right.
No, Ed wanted Christian and Carolina to play with Cam and to play for Ron. And probably to pay for Turner. Because here's the thing. Everybody says that, Norv Turner was a QB coach. He's a running back soothsayer.
And unfortunately, Norv Turner, he's been a head coach in this league, and I don't think he's had – you can tell that he wasn't ready to be a head coach, even though that he has all that experience.
Right. When he was he ended up being Ron's assistant or whatever, assistant coach or assistant head coach. I don't remember the exact title, but he went from being the OC to being that. Now Scott, his son, is Ron's OC in Washington.
So a little bit of family connection.
Yeah. So and Scott was here in Charlotte too. But I don't know what this season will bring. I do anticipate Matt Rule being fired if we actually win, which a couple of people that I love very much in my life tell me that that's going to happen. Like my dad, my best friend, and my husband all looked at me like I was batty the other day. I was like, all right, fine, I'm walking away. Y'all can all tell me when I'm right. And
we'll get to my prediction here in a little bit, but I also think in order for you guys to be successful, and this is with every NFL team, including the Denver Broncos, you have to protect the quarterback. Give him time to throw.
But we don't have the O-line. We have not had the O-line. I am excited about our upgrade at center. I am excited about our draft. I think he's going to bring a lot to it. Brady Christensen's going to bring a lot to the left side. We've needed somebody to complement Taylor Moton. Taylor Moton is the second right tackle in the league. Second best right tackle in the league. Sorry, I said that wrong. We've needed someone to complement him for years. We haven't had a left side worther since Jordan Gross retired or was pushed out. And Dave Gettleman.
As for Cool McCain's comment, will he be better in Carolina than Cleveland? That's remained to be seen, because we saw what he did in Cleveland. I think he has better receivers in Carolina, but we really don't know what that's going to mean for the regular season.
Well, and my question is, and I mean this sincerely and earnestly, I have no confidence in Matt Rule. Will he do well under Matt Rule? Because I know for the Panthers fans, y'all are going to remember this. Cool, you may have watched it too. I'm not sure, or at least seen the highlights. But when we played Washington, it was Cam's first game back. It was Ron's first game back. Ron and Stephanie, his wife, walked out on the field before everybody else did. Standing ovation. Like, I teared up. And yeah, you can judge me. It's cool. And but then when we're in the play, Cam threw the ball pass the ball to Christian. Christian then passed it back to Cam. Cam threw it to Tommy. And I think we got a TD out of that, or we got a lot of yards. But Ron should have seen that coming. Matt Rule chewed their derrieres out on the sideline.
For that creative play? Really? That's interesting. It was
the most creative play I have seen out of the Carolina Panthers in 2.5 years.
If it works, why get mad? I that's where Matt Rule needs to just chill. If a play's going to work.
He can't check his ego. He cannot check his ego.
That's interesting because the Broncos have never had that creative a play. If they would have had that, I'm sure it would be in every week. Well, of course, not last year because our offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, didn't do a whole lot. But either way, I mean, that is a play you want in your playbook because it keeps defenses guessing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hell, when we re-signed Cam last year, even Steve Smith was excited. By the way, for all of you guys who are, she's just a Cam fan. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan first, followed then I'm a Cam fan. I'm well aware Cam is not the same football player as he was in 2015. However, he's still a starting quarterback in this league. And I will go head-to-head with anyone who says otherwise. I do want to deep dive onto why he can't get a starting QB job, though.
That was actually my next question is, why can't he get another starting quarterback job? You know, I look at it that he can do everything that even a Russell Wilson can do. He can read the
he can do more than like Russell said, he's a more talented athlete.
So it's interesting that he doesn't have a job right now. Hopefully that'll change because I think, like you said, he can still be a starting quarterback in this league. We saw that last year, even though that was what?
We even saw that when before he got COVID with the Patriots. Before he got COVID with the Patriots, he was doing great, and he had no practice. But he's part of the reason why I hate Mac Jones.
Fair enough. But now we'll move on to your defensive outlook. I mean, the defense.
Oh, they're going to be lit. They're going to be Von Miller lit.
You really do need that. I think, honestly, if you look at it, your passing stats weren't that bad, giving up 192.1 yards per game, fourth in the NFL, fourth least.
Yeah.
Rushing wise is where you guys kind of got gashed, giving up 113.8 yards per game, 18th in the NFL. But I think you guys are going to be definitely better defensively. Hey, Will.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Will. Okay, so, obviously, you know where I used to live. I was very fortunate. I still live there. But physically, hello, I'm back in the burbs. And they, one of the guys I heard coming in, this cracked me up, okay? He goes, if Sam don't want to be here, Sam needs to get that out. And it came out this season that Sam didn't want to be here. But then I was talking to a couple of the other guys, and they were like, no, you don't understand how lit our defense is. They're like, Jen, we know you do your podcasts and stuff, but you don't get it. I was like, are we talking TD lit or more amplified? He was like, more amplified. I was like, all right, I'll take it. So, sorry, now.
You're good. I mean, the thing that I look at your defense kind of reminds me of the Broncos defense. Great defense. You guys, I mean, yeah, you had trouble. Well, that's the exact same thing that I saw with Denver. You guys get tired because your offense couldn't really do a whole lot, which forces your defense out on the field more. And what happens? You get tired. I think as long as you guys can produce more first downs and have that defense rest, you guys are going to be fine. Because I look at it, 192.1 yards per game through the air, I'll take that. That just means your defense is doing a pretty good job. What I'd like to see more, though, is more turnovers. You had 9 interceptions and 7 fumbles, a total of 16. I'd like to see that number a little bit higher because of the fact that, turnovers are going to equal more opportunities for your offense to score.
Right. I remember, Nick Stevens, right? Shout out Nick Stevens. So he and I were getting into it when we drafted Jeremy Chen. And I was like, I don't know why you're pissy. I have a good feeling about him. And he may not remember this, but I remember it because it's so rare that I'm right, except on my Panthers. And I'm wrong all the time. But he is lit. I'm so excited to see Jeremy Burns Chen do what he's doing. I'm excited to see Burns. Shaq is on the pup list right now. There's something going on with his knee. He has to have exculpatory surgery on that. But I mean, that's just figuring out what's going on, probably cleaning it out a little bit. I mean, these guys put so much through their body. But last year we ended up 18th in the season in the league for our defense. And I expect us to be more. Like when I'm talking to certain players and I don't, I want to respect their, anonymity. And they're telling me how great it's going to be. I'm stoked. I'm also surprised they talk to me half the time. I'm not going to lie. I'm always a little starstruck.
The other thing that I look at your defense too is pressuring the quarterback. You had 39 sacks last year. That's not bad. Nope. That has to go up, especially if you want to have more turnovers. We all know that creating pressure will equal turnovers. But the fact of the matter is if you have 39, that's almost close to 40. That's still a pretty good number.
Yeah. Who had the most sacks in the league last year? Let me Google that since I'm making you Google it.
I'm curious about that too.
NFL team had the most.
Let's see. Defensive stats. Let's see. I want to say it was one of the playoff teams. I'm not 100% sure.
They're saying it's Pittsburgh. 55.
Really? Huh.
Well, they have JJ and TJ.
That's true. They have the Watt guys. But that surprises me because Pittsburgh, I believe, didn't make the playoffs, but they had that whole streak of sacking the quarterback, at a game for the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, they also play the Browns twice a year.
Let's be honest. The Browns aren't, it's hard to say they are a football team because they are, and it could be worse. No offense to Dom. We love Dom. You could be the you could be the Lions.
Right.
But you're right.
Well, the Lions are pretty overrated. Underrated, I think.
Well, they have.
Huh?
I was just going to say they have a pretty good quarterback.
They have a good quarterback. They have the parts together there. It just needs to gel.
Well, and if you look at that division, it's still tough because you have the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers. I'm trying to remember who else is in that division. I'm missing one team. Minnesota.
Minnesota was second. Pittsburgh had 55. Minnesota had 51. Rams had 50. The Bears, shockingly, had 49.
There's the other team I was missing in that division. It's the Bears.
That shocks me. Look at that, Jacob Christner.
He's one of our guys that is on the Confidential with us. Also, he has his own show, The Pundits Pundit and Basket Bros. So, yeah, Jacob is not very keen on his Bears this year, but they were still a pretty good defense. It's just his offense needs to get adjusted.
Exactly. Cowboys had 41. There you go, Megan.
41. Yeah, didn't realize that. But they were a playoff team last year. I wonder how many of the top. Yeah, they were a playoff team.
Cowboys in the playoffs?
They lost in the divisional
round. Oh, that's right.
Round.
They did. Lost in
or overtime. the wild card
round. But with 0.1 seconds left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you look at the top sacks, and this is something I can figure out on my show. Well, this is my show, but when I do it by myself, when it's just me without a guest, I can look at the sacks and see who were playoff teams, because I'm wondering if sacks equals playoff success. We know that it's, offense, but
I mean, the Bears were the 5th.
So probably not.
Probably not. No, cool. It was Nagy that was pure trash in the front office. He loves his players.
That is true. Jacob loves his players, never liked Nagy. At least they got a new head coach. So
yeah, look at that. Chicago was smarter than Carolina.
So were the Broncos, but that took a few years. Not to diss on your Panthers, because you were in the second year of your head coach. I was in the third, so it's a little bit different. But now it's prediction time. Yes. Record prediction. What do you think the Panthers are going to do this year?
He doesn't?
I don't know. I thought he didn't like Justin Fields. I know he didn't like Justin Fields, but that's because they put him out too soon. Cool. I don't think he hates his quarterbacks. He just felt like they put Justin Fields in a bad situation.
Okay, here's my prediction. If we keep Rule all season. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 predictions. 5-12. If we get rid of Rule, 12-5.
Wow. Okay, that's a bold prediction.
Actually, let me change that to 11-6.
Still a bold prediction. That's higher than what I have them at. We're pretty similar at worst, because I have them at 6-11. Mm-hmm. And that's, of course, if you keep Matt Rule. I think, honestly, I don't see you as a playoff team this year, even with Matt Rule. Or even if you fire
we're not going to the playoffs this year. We have at least 2 starting quarterbacks, Jordan. He wants a third, meaning 5 quarterbacks on the roster. And here's the thing. I don't hate on PJ Walker. I have not. Sam Darnold, people say he's trash. If you actually go out and look at things, Sam Darnold did everything asked of him. Robbie Anderson intentionally did not catch balls. Like, it was intentional. Oh, you're nicer than me, Cool. Thank you.
What did Cool have to say now?
8-9.
That's
Is that with Rule or without Rule?
See, that's what I have at worst. At best, I see 8-9 or 7-10. I don't know if that is with Matt Rule, but either way, I could see that. That all depends.
I think there's just 2 different ones with Matt Rule. I mean, with or without him, you've got 2 different plans of action. We keep Matt Rule, Christian's out, and 4th or 5th game for the rest of the season. Then I'm going to have to hear all over the radio how we need to get rid of Christian. People do not understand. Matt Rule does not like Christian. Who's that quarterback that John Shearer loves? Who am I thinking of? Running back on my team. Why am I blanking? Come on, do you know who I'm talking about? We got him 2 years ago. Okay, anyway, he admitted that the only reason why he got that running back was because his wife told him to.
Wow.
I don't tell my husband how to do his job. Well, the bank would probably fail if I tried to tell my husband how to do his job. But
that's interesting, because then what's the point? If that story is true, what's the point of having, your scouts or your general managers, if that is actually the truth, that you're just going to go with the guy that your wife tells you or who you want to go with?
There's a reason Scott Fitterer got hired really soon after.
Makes sense. I mean, I look at the Panthers as you guys are still sort of rebuilding, but then again, if you get rid of Matt Rule, then that rebuilding process even goes a little bit faster.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, during the Buffalo Bills Carolina Panthers game last year, I will never forget this tweet as long as I live. I love Trey Boston. Dude is up there with Steve Smith for me. I freaking love him. He is hilarious. He sends out a tweet going, LOL, I can't stop laughing, but I can't take credit. One of the Bills players just texted me and told me that there is a send roll back to school across the entire NFL.
that may not be the worst thing for him.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I mean,
Just
we've
get away
talked.
from my team out of my city.
I mean,
Go
we've
away.
talked
You're in
about
trouble.
this. It's kind of like, I mean, a show that you and I are on the Confidential that we've talked about Ross needing to go back to college. Maybe that's what he needs to do. Matt Rule needs to do is to go back to college where he was a little bit successful, because honestly, the NFL game just doesn't seem like the right fit for him.
I'd even be okay if he went to XFL. I don't care.
That is starting up next year, which honestly, that wouldn't be a bad place for him to go, even if he's an assistant on one of these staffs, just to relearn how to be
from my team.
How to be not a head coach, but a coordinator, which wouldn't be the worst thing. Of course, I know your feelings on Matt Rule, so hopefully XFL can do better. I guess that is true, cool, but you still have some pretty good head coaches that are actually in the XFL right now, even though that's starting next year. I know Wade Phillips, guy who was in the NFL, coached the Denver Broncos also as the defensive coordinator when we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's a good guy. He's never, was a great head coach. Maybe this will give him a chance to actually have that experience and have a job. So I'm all for that if you're going to go from the NFL to the XFL or these other leagues that are starting to pop up, because there was the USFL, United States Football League, or not the USFL, but the league that started this year. So it makes sense.
Sorry, there's a bee.
It's all good. Bees are not fun to be around. I understand.
I agree. I think the XFL has some good coaching. Like when they were doing it a couple of years ago, they actually had some pretty cool ideas that I think would translate well in the NFL.
They did. And then the United States Football League that just started last year, or this past summer, summer and spring. I actually like some of their rules. You could have chosen on the PAT where to place the ball. You could go for 1, you could go for 2. Heck, you could even go for 3. I actually like their rules. So we'll see. I mean, the NFL is slow to change, as we all know.
Right.
So thank you, Jen, for being on the
Thank you for having me.
You're certainly welcome here on Under Review. Tell the people where they can follow you and find you on, obviously, social media and on the Sideline Sports Network.
So you can definitely find me running away from bees, as you obviously see. And go away, you piece of crud. Okay. And you can also find me on My Baby with My Chickadees, 3 Chicks in a Pod, Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. However, this week, they're going to be very nice to me. One of my girlfriends wants to take me to a concert for my birthday. So we're doing it on Wednesday night this week. Then you can find me on Confidential on Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry. And then you can also find me on NBA Carousel on Monday nights. We will have a totally different look this coming season. You can find me on the NFL Carousel on Thursday nights. Which will have a different look as well this season. You can also find me on the Step Off on occasion on the Pundit's Pundit, along with Jacob Christner and Jay Nelson, aka Denzel Snipes, and I think and I produce Basket Bros.
So of course you can find me here on Under Review. Usually I post this on Friday, so I was lucky enough to have Jen on this week.
Thank you.
You're definitely welcome. The NBA Carousel. I'm excited to know what our what our show's going to be like. I'm kind of interested. Of course, I'll find that out once the NBA season starts up. I'm on the NFL Carousel, which is on Thursdays during the NFL season. Confidential, which is on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, I have my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. And, of course, sometimes I pop in on other Sideline Sports Network shows. I've been on the Pundit's Pundit. Definitely enjoyed that show with you guys. Basketball.
Enjoyed having you.
Basket Bros definitely takes me back to my childhood, and definitely listen to 3 Chicks in a Pod and watch them with Megan Price, Jen, as well as Carrie, because these ladies do a phenomenal job talking about sports as well as, you know, the issues at hand. So definitely watch all of those. So thank you for watching this edition of Under Review, and be sure to watch all of our shows here on the Sideline Sports Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thanks, Jordan.
You are welcome.